The Occult Secrets of Vril by Robert Sepehr. Introduction. Is mankind on the threshold of a new age of enlightenment, or are we descending a dwindling spiral, doomed to repeat the lessons from history which we either forget or never seem to learn? In pre-World War II Germany, the Vril Society used the swastika emblem to link Eastern and Western occultism. They advanced the idea of a subterranean matriarchal utopia ruled by a race of Aryan beings who had mastered a mysterious force called Vril. This breakaway civilization had survived the antediluvian cataclysms which ended the Ice Age, and passed on their guarded occult knowledge through initiation into sacred mystery schools. Vril was known to these mystics as a natural and abundant energy, having disseminated its divine wisdom worldwide under many names. The Chinese referred to it as Chi, the Hindu as prana, and the Japanese as Reiki, or Riki. Albert Pike said, "There is in nature one most potent force, by means whereof a single man, who could possess himself of it, and should know how to direct it, could revolutionize and change the face of the world." Helena Blavatsky, the foundress of the Theosophical Society, described the Vril energy as an ether stream that could be transformed into a physical force. What are the secrets of Vril? Beginning of Chapter 1. A growing number of independent researchers believe that the world's fascination with the nuclear war is just the latest episode in a series of tragedies that humanity seems intent on repeating. Hindu tales speak of swift flying craft called Vimana. Vimanas were flying palaces or chariots and were said to have the ability to deliver explosives at very high altitude and speed. Sir Monier Williams, 1819 through 1899, was the second Bowdoin Professor of Sanskrit at Oxford University in England. He defined Vimana as a car or a chariot of the gods, any mythical self-moving aerial car, sometimes serving as a seat or throne, sometimes self-moving and carrying its occupant through the air. Other descriptions make the Vimana more like a house or palace, and one kind is said to be 7 stories high, and quotes the Pushpaka Vimana of Ravana as an example. In some modern Indian languages, like Hindi, Vimana means aircraft. For example, in the town name Vimanapura, a suburb of Bangalore. In Mahabharata, the Shura Maya had a Vimana with 4 strong wheels, which measured 12 cubits in circumference. The Ramayana describes the Pushpaka flowery Vimana of Ravana as follows. The Pushpaka Vimana that resembles the sun and belongs to my brother was brought by the powerful Ravana. That aerial and excellent Vimana going everywhere at will, that chariot resembling a bright cloud in the sky, and the king Rama got in, and the excellent chariot, at the command of the Rahira, rose up into the higher atmosphere. Ancient Indo-Aryan texts describe great epic wars, and they have made a tremendous impression on generations. These armies use weapons that, as bizarre as it sounds, could literally level the land like a moving force field. Ancient Indian texts contain classifications of words that stretch the imagination for certain measurements of length. There is one word for the distance of light years and another for the length of an atom. It has been argued that only a society that possessed direct knowledge of nuclear energy would have the need for such nomenclature. Robert Oppenheimer, years 1904 to 1967, was a Jewish-American theoretical physicist, best known as the scientific director of the Manhattan Project, the effort to develop, during World War II, the first nuclear weapons. He is often remembered as the father of the atomic bomb, having worked closely with Albert Einstein. After witnessing the first nuclear explosion at the Trinity test site on July 16, 1945, Oppenheimer remarked that it brought to his mind words from chapter 11, verse 32 of the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Some researchers claim the vast empty deserts on a number of continents today are the possible result of prehistoric nuclear warfare. In fact, Aryan sacred writings are full of descriptions which sound like atomic explosions and fallout, as experienced by helpless victims in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. When asked during an interview by a student, "How do you feel after having exploded the first atomic bomb?" Robert Oppenheimer replied simply and directly, "Not first atomic bomb, first atomic bomb in modern times." Professor Oppenheimer strongly held the conviction that radioactive weapons were detonated in ancient warfare as recorded in the old scriptures. What made him believe that these were nuclear battles were the eerily accurate descriptions of the weapons and their effects as used in wars described in the Vedic literature. These descriptions match closely with witness testimonial descriptions of modern nuclear detonations. A description of the total destructive power of these weapons appears in the Ramayana, which reads, "It was a weapon so powerful that it could destroy the earth in an instant. A great soaring sound and smoke and flames, and on it sits death." The Ramayana, attributed to the poet Valmiki, was written during the 1st century AD, although it is based on oral traditions that go back 6 or 7 centuries earlier. Further examples of possible atomic battles in ancient times appear in the Drona Parva, a section of the Mahabharata. The passage tells of fierce combat where explosions of final weapons decimate entire armies, causing crowds of warriors with steeds, elephants, and weapons to be carried away as if they were the dry leaves of trees. The Mahabharata, attributed to the sage Vyasa, was written down from 500 to 300 BC and tells legends of the Bharatas, a Vedic Aryan group. It has been suggested that Oppenheimer was referring to the Brahmastra weapon mentioned in these Vedic texts, or Vedic texts. Consider these verses from the ancient Mahabharata. Gurkha, flying a swift and powerful Vimana, fast aircraft, hurled a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. An incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 1,000 suns arose, and in all of its splendor a perpendicular explosion with its bellowing smoke clouds. The cloud of smoke rising after its first explosion formed into expanding round circles like the opening of giant parasols. It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death which reduced to ashes the entire race of the Vrishnis and the Andhakas. The corpses were so burned as to be unrecognizable. The hair and nails fell out, pottery broke without apparent cause, and the birds turned white. After a few hours, all foodstuffs were infected. To escape from this fire, the soldiers threw themselves in streams to wash themselves and their equipment. Dense arrows of flame, like a great shower, issued forth, encompassing the enemy. A thick gloom swiftly settled upon the hosts. All points of the compass were lost in darkness. Fierce wind began to blow upward, showering dust and gravel. Birds croaked madly. The very elements seemed disturbed. It continues. The earth shook, scorched by the terrible violent heat of this weapon. Elephants burst into flame and ran to and fro in a frenzy over a vast area. Other animals crumbled to the ground and died. From all points of the compass, the arrows of flame rained continuously and fiercely. Although Oppenheimer never formally converted to any other religion apart from what he believed in, which was Judaism, and never referred to himself as a Hindu directly, the ancient Aryan Vedic philosophy did influence him greatly. He never openly prayed to any deities, nor went to a mandir, known as a Hindu temple. He was never a follower in a devotional sense, but he did take lessons in Sanskrit so he could better understand the Bhagavad Gita in its native tongue. His brother said that Oppenheimer found that Bhagavad Gita very easy and quite marvelous, and was really taken by the charm and the general wisdom of the Gita. Robert Oppenheimer was also famously quoted as saying that access to the Vedas is the greatest privilege this century may claim over all previous centuries. In 1996, Vincenzo de Michele, an Italian mineralogist, spotted an unusual yellow-green gem in the middle of one of Tutankhamun's necklaces. The beautiful scarab at the center of King Tut's pendant was tested and found to be glass, but it turned out to be much older than the earliest Egyptian civilization. The fission track dates of the glass indicate that it is at least 28 million years old. Geologists traced its origins to an unexplained chunks of glass called Libyan desert glass, found scattered in the sand in a remote region of the Sahara Desert. The glass itself, however, is a scientific enigma. How did it get there, and who or what made it? Libyan desert glass is a natural glass made of silica, or silicon dioxide, and easily found. It is dispersed along the Libyan desert, scattered throughout the western desert of West Egypt by the Libyan-Egyptian border. This glass is a form of tektite, a word which comes from the Greek word tektos, meaning molten. Scientists say the glass in this region is the largest known deposit of a natural silica glass on the planet Earth, about 98% silicon oxide. The transparent and sometimes translucent pieces are clear to opaque, white or yellow to green in color, and they glitter like gems in the bright desert sun. They vary in size from small pieces to large chunks weighing over 20 pounds. The glass was known to the ancient Egyptians, who called it the Rock of God, while it was even known to prehistoric people as it was used for Paleolithic tools such as sharp blades dating about 10,000 years ago. An Austrian astrochemist, Christian Koberl, established that the desert glass had been formed at a temperature so hot that there could be only one known cause to account for the tremendous heat, a meteorite impacting with Earth, yet there were no visible signs of a suitable impact crater where this glass is located, even in satellite images. Another explanation is that the heat that formed the desert glass had a terrestrial source, one that included atomic war, using weapons capable of melting sand. In this book, The Wars of God and Men, Zecharia Sitchin puts forward this alternative high-tech explanation for the sudden extreme heat. Sitchin, a strong proponent for the advanced ancient civilizations with sophisticated technology, describes what Greeks wrote down concerning the battle between Zeus and the Titans. The hot vapor lapped around the Titans of Gaia, born. Flame unspeakable rose bright to the upper air, the flashing glare of the thunderstone, its lightning blinding their eyes, so strong it was. Astounding heat seized chaos. It seemed as if earth and wide heaven above had come together, a mighty crash, as though earth was hurled to ruin. Also, the winds brought rumbling, earthquake, and dust storm, thunder and lightning. He argues that the abrupt end to some ancient civilizations in our mythologies may have been based on real events, cataclysms, due to the prehistoric use of nuclear weaponry. In this verse, Zeus is conquering Typhon. A flame shot forth from the stricken lord in the dim, rugged, secluded valley of the mount. When he was smitten, a great part of huge earth was scorched by the terrible vapor, melting as tin melts when heated by man's art. In the glow of a blazing fire did the earth melt down. During the first Egyptian pyramid war waged between Horus and Seth, the moment Horus strikes, he let loose against them a storm which they could neither see with their eyes nor hear with their ears. It brought death to all of them in a single moment. The Bible also contains incidents which many researchers attribute to ancient nuclear warfare, such as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Genesis 18:27. Abraham looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and he saw smoke rising from the earth, as smoke of a furnace. Beginning in 1999, archaeologists specializing in the Near East saw mounting empirical evidence that the demise of Sumer and Akkad, Sumer's northern extension, coincided with an abrupt climate change. An initial study by Harvey Weiss and Timothy C. Weskell of Harvard University placed the date at about 4,000 years ago. A subsequent study, published in the April 2000 edition of Geology by H.M. Cullen et al., reinforced this finding. Based on studies of unexplained aridity and wind-blown dust storms and radiocarbon dating, they reported that their readings indicated a date of about 4,000 years ago, with about a 100-year margin of error. A major study published in the April 2001 issue of Journal Science, authored by Peter B. D. Menachel of Columbia University, paid particular attention to sedimentary remains of tephra, fragmental material usually attributed to a volcanic explosion, and concluded that the rock fragments confirmed the date of around 2000 BC, also about 4,000 years ago. According to Zechariah Sitchin, noting, the only explanation for these broken and blackened stones in the Sinai and the wind-blown desolation in Mesopotamia can be the tale of Era Epos, reflected in the biblical tale of Sodom and Gomorrah. Not an eruption by a non-existent volcano, but by the use of nuclear weapons in 2024 BC. The first detonation of an atomic bomb by the United States in New Mexico at the Trinity test site in 1945 created so much heat that it formed a crater of radioactive glass in the desert about 10 feet deep and over 1,000 feet in width. This is the same type of glass that is found in India, Egypt, and many other locations. Many in the scientific community believe that the desert glass resulted from a meteorite impact. However, no crater has ever been found. The tremendous heat, pressure, and shock waves from massive meteorite impacts alter the materials near or directly beneath a meteor impact site, and as a result, they are known as impactites. Sand melts into impact glasses, and rocks get shattered and compressed into breccias, broken fragments of rock cemented together. Melted glasses and fragments of sediments become embedded in the fine-grained matrix, the cement of the breccias. Yet, much of the desert glass is clear of the embedded sediments one would expect to find if it were from a meteor impact. Some scientists propose that a meteor exploded above the ground, leaving no impact crater, yet producing enough heat to melt and glassify the surface material below. This scenario is similar to an airburst event, like the one which often described in association with the 1908 Tunguska explosion over Siberia. The Tunguska explosion knocked down an estimated 80 million trees over an area of 2,000 square kilometers. And if the measurement could have been taken, the shock wave from the blast would have measured 5.0 on the Richter scale. An explosion of this magnitude would be capable of destroying an entire metropolitan city, but due to the remoteness of the Siberian location, there were no documented fatalities. However, there are those who say the glass couldn't have been fused from the local exposed sandstone because both the sand and the dunes are not older than 1 million years, while the Libyan desert glass is reported to be over 28 million years old. I think it is fair to say this topic is not yet closed and deserves more serious investigation and debate. End of chapter 1.